So can you tell us something about your experiences growing up and what led you to like choose law as your profession?
Wow. Well, law was always the plan. I'd actually gotten admission in GLC Mumbai after my 12th, but then I qualified for the first merit list in political science at LSR. And honestly, I really wanted to experience LSR. And oh my, what an experience it was. I always believed, I had this opinion since I'd also done arts and humanities in my 11th, 12th as well. So I was always inclined towards, these subjects, political science, psychology, sociology. And I thought that law is somehow an amalgamation of all of these subjects. You get to learn about life when you learn law. And with political science, I believe that it laid down the perfect foundation for law because it helps you understand the why of it. At the risk of oversimplification, I would just say that I believe laws exist to regulate societies which are actually governed by politics. So law and political science are intricately related. Now I can connect the dots and see how societies have been created and shaped all across the world. I can understand the dichotomy between the strict domestic laws and international anarchy, how it coexists, and how the constitution forms the heart and soul of a nation and how nations interact with each other. And also the fact that being an individual, even the smallest of our actions are regulated by lawmaking authorities and we don't even realize it on a daily basis. So the study of political science, it enriched my understanding of the law.
Wow. So can you tell us something about your experiences at LSR and how they shaped your time at law school? And also, I'd like you to talk a little more about how your experience was like at taking a legal degree at Chandigarh at Punjab University and like studying political science at one of the like top universities in India. So can you just tell us how like studying a 3-year law course is versus you doing a 3-year undergraduate in some other subject?
Right. So I also, when I graduated after my 12th, I had this question that what would be better, 5-year law in one go or, 3-year graduation in some other subject and then 3-year law. So at that point also, like I told you, I was enticed by LSR completely. I wanted to be an ELSA. So at LSR, the LSR alumni, they call themselves ELSAs. And we say that, you can take us out of LSR, but you can't take LSR out of us. And I honestly believe that, even today, whatever I do in life, wherever I am, I'm always going to be an Elsa. The experience at LSR, it shaped my worldview. It told me, not told me per se, but it taught me how to learn about the world, how there are so many ways to look at the world. And before like we go on to Punjab University experience, I would like to share a little bit about what I felt when I was in LSR. So, one of the most important things that I took away from LSR was that I saw this phrase, personal is political, come to life. So, since times immemorial, women have been hushed into a little corner within the four walls of a home, and everything that happens with them within those four walls, however unfair or unjust it may sound, it has always deemed to be personal in some respect, and that, some privacy should be given because that is how deep rooted our political structures are, and how deep rooted the patriarchy goes and the intrinsic oppressiveness and the instances of domestic violence, abuse, harassment, and daily challenges which are much graver that are felt and faced by women. They were faced in the past, they're being faced in the present, and they'll always be there, I believe, in the future. These challenges, they stem from the political situation that women are in, that I believe and that I learned at LSR. And so it was here that I realized the importance of recognizing your rights, to recognize your rights, to protect yourself against all odds. And it made me think long and hard how, maybe if I can be bold enough to say this, that if we live in the jungle already, we might as well know the laws of the jungle. So, I just wanted that feeling of that need for empowerment. and that need to stand up for myself, it actually made me, it reaffirmed my desire to learn the law. So that was my biggest takeaway from LSR. And about Punjab University, so when I was deciding that, okay, now I have to do my 3 year law, where should I go? I had multiple reasons to go for Punjab University. First of all, the beautiful, beautiful campus. When you enter that place, you get that, that sense of everything is okay in life. People are so relaxed, and the campus is so beautiful, and there's so much greenery and flowers. And I honestly believe that the surroundings, make a huge, huge difference to the way we think and we learn and grow and everything else. And also, walking down the same halls as late Srimati Sushma Swaraj and Advocate Kapil Sibal, it instilled a sense of pride and honor in me, and immense gratitude. And my favorite memory from Punjab University is, so we had this common library. It was the AC Joshi Library, where students from all the departments, they used to come there and sit in their own particular seats, and it used to be filled with students, whether you go in the daytime or at night. It used to be open all night, and everybody used to come together and study on their own. But there was this feeling of unity, and just seeing the dedication with which they were trying to learn something, it was inspiring. So during the winters when I had my exams, I used to go there and study at night. And I never used to find a place in the chair, so I used to just sit on the floor somewhere and spread all of my books. And the warmth that place exuded, trust me, those winter nights were never really cold for me. I learned so much. People just from my department that I didn't even know were in my department, because there were so many people in our class only, and the department was huge. They used to come to me, and if they noticed me getting confused or a question mark on my face, they used to offer help without me having to ask for it. And then they used to give me time to explain topics to me, share their notes. So the culture was like everybody wanted to share their knowledge and whatever experiences they have with each other. So one of my friends, she says this all the time, and it stuck with me, that knowledge that does not travel shrivels. So if
Wow.
you don't share what you've learned, the knowledge, it really is of no use. It really doesn't help. You don't grow that way. So the only way to grow is by growing together. That's what I believe truly do. And that's what I actually also learned from Punjab University. So it was a great, great experience.
Wow, that's been quite a ride. So, from what I understand, when you entered Punjab University, you already had a shaped worldview in a way which, like, I think personally I didn't have, because I went to college right after my graduation. So when you go to law school with like such a shaped bent of mind that, oh, this is how the world works, and like I'll try to figure out in particular ways how laws can be shaped, and how like my understanding of law can add to that worldview, and how probably I can also change that worldview. So so here I'd want to ask, that was litigation something which you thought from beforehand, like when you join college? Because litigation is something which, which I guess surely impacts the world, and it gives you like such an opportunity to especially make an impact in the things which you were interested in. So why don't you talk a little bit about that? What was like your thought process before entering, in terms of what you wanted to do after your graduation?
Thank you for this question, Umang. And you rightly put it that it actually, when I entered law college with a pre-formed worldview of sorts, that's also flexible, because that also keeps changing and you keep
Hmm.
growing. It keeps you on your toes all the time. But the seriousness with which you perceive a subject, the seriousness with which you try to understand it, I think that definitely changes. And so when I was, like I told you, I was this avid fighter for my rights and everything. And LSI gave me that bent of mind, and I really wanted to be the voice of the voice. I wanted to feel that sense of empowerment in me, and I truly believed that litigation was the only way to get that done. Because when you're litigating, you actually can secure justice. I truly believe that you can go in front of the judge, you can, avidly put your arguments to the judge, and you can try to persuade with your facts and circumstances and everything else, and your application of the law. You can persuade the judge to deliver a judgment in your favor, and if you're fighting for the right, if you're fighting for the truth, then you will be victorious. That was my basic opinion when I knew that I wanted to get into litigation. But I also thought that a major part of that would involve me learning how to dress like a lawyer, with the band, black coat and white shirt and everything else. And I was way more excited about that than, even thinking that before I learned how to dress like a lawyer, I should learn how to think like a lawyer. I never really, went into that line of thinking, maybe because it was too depressing at that point and it was too overwhelming. So, but I was too starry-eyed and idealistic, I believe. So that's why I wanted to get into litigation. And
Wow, but that's a great answer. That reminds me of like why so many students in college do MUNs, because they can wear fancy suits and and lots of other activities, I think, for that matter. But when you talk about the starry-eyed perspective about joining litigation, so can you like talk a little bit about what changed exactly when you entered the world of litigation? Like I'm sure, like especially as a women lawyer, there's a lot more which you would have faced, which like other people don't face. So can you like tell us something about your experiences there and like how it led to like shattering of that like
right,
starry-eyedness which you had?
you got that, huh, Umang? Right. So I'll just share my first introduction to a litigation office. It
Okay.
was my internship with a senior advocate in New Delhi. So, I remember that there were too many case files. I knew that, okay, this office handles civil matters, but I didn't know how they handle those matters, what exactly is a cause list, and how the court functions. Because, those are the things that I didn't even know that they were the things that you needed to know before you enter the profession. I thought court chale jayenge, dekhenge wahan pe क्या होता है. You just go to the court and you'll see how it works and how everything happens, and you learn when you observe. But sadly, it didn't happen for me. Going to the court did not really help because there were too many tall people stepping on each other's toes, and it was not at all the way I had imagined it to be. There'd be a judge sitting, and there'd be uh, too many lawyers, too many, and most of them men somehow, and too tall and too aggressive. And then no place to sit, and so I could never really hear what was being said by the judge or even by the lawyers when I went to court. I went to Delhi High Court and district courts in Punjab Haryana High Court and district courts in Chandigarh. But I couldn't understand. So then I thought that maybe I'll understand better if I knew what the case was about. And the way to do that was to read the case files. And so I thought, okay, I'll intern under a judge probably. So I did my internship under Justice G.S. Istani at Delhi High Court also, just to, experience the other side of the room, get a clearer view, and sit down and properly be able to listen to what was being said. So when I was there, there were minimum of 50 files that would be heard by the judge on a particular given day. So what I used to do was I could skim through 10 files a day or something. So the matters that were listed the next day, out of those files, I used to just skim through 10 files and try to read it like a story. But honestly, it never made sense to me. The characters and the repetition and the things that were being said in those stories, the narrative, everything, it never made any sense to me. And even when I waited for those matters to be called out and listened to what was being argued and everything, I just don't know why I couldn't understand anything. And I hated myself for it because everybody around me, clad in black and white, they seem to have their life perfectly in order. They seem to be so much in charge, and I felt so lost. So that was, I think, one of the major things that happened when I actually practically witnessed the litigation in action. And then after graduation, of course, being a first generation lawyer, when you don't have any contacts, and in my college, we didn't even have a proper placement cell in place. So, I was frantically looking for jobs. how I did that was I used to apply online to every independent advocate, every law firm that I saw a post from which said vacancy or hiring now. So I applied, and everybody told me that you shouldn't think about money at this point. You should only think about learning. So I genuinely did not think about money, or I did not think about my expenses. I did not think about. I felt like I had to learn. So for that I should have to pay. I should not ask for anything. But that's also a kind of thinking that I now believe is instilled in us that lowers our confidence instead of helping us. I and When I landed my first job with an independent advocate in Delhi, I was truly shattered. It wasn't the long commute or the long hours with traveling with bags full of files from one court to another. It wasn't even the peanuts of salary that I was getting in the name of just doing something for the heck of it that disillusioned me. It was this overwhelming feeling of being too small in such a big world. There's constant fear and anxiety, and because of the constant pressure of being expected to do things that were never really taught to me. I did not know anything, and then feeling guilty for not being able to do it in time and needing more time to adjust and learn. And that is not something that was coming from within per se. It was actually forced upon me. Now I can see it, that the atmosphere that I was in, the way I was treated, I it just made me feel guilty. And everything moves at lightning speed in a law office, and it can get like you can feel lightheaded and your head is spinning all the time. And honestly, I was just really disappointed because I never found my mentor in this field. You know.
Hmm.
I made friends, I found awesome colleagues who helped me out when I got stuck. But that feeling of having found your guru, somebody whose footsteps you could just follow in, who will teach you things that no books or no self improvement plans could ever teach you, without any quid pro quo, without any consideration or anything in return, just to help you learn and grow. I guess I really expected that for myself and I never found it. So that disappointment, to deal with that, and then to realize that, okay, securing justice is really not something that gets done in a day or even a month, or it may take your entire lifetime to secure justice in just one case. So, and justice is also very subjective, you know, so those things as well.
Wow, yeah, definitely. There's a lot to unpack, and I have a lot of questions to ask you. But this is something which I've also felt in terms of like not having the feeling of not knowing adequate law, or like even one thing which I want to talk about now is like this idea about having studied the law or completed your law degree but never knowing enough law. And this is something which I've also personally felt. Like my most embarrassing moment, I think, as a lawyer is whenever we are hanging out, say a bunch of friends or me going somewhere with my family, and a traffic police like stops us or is checking the vehicles, and we know we have something to be worried about. So everyone's like, oh, Umang will handle it, Umang's a lawyer, we don't need to be worried about anything. And like from the outside I'm like, yeah, I'll handle it, there's this not an issue. But deep down I know that there's nothing which I know more than say the person sitting next to me who's not studied law in most cases. And this is something which I think everyone has felt at one point or the other, that law school or like legal education generally, there's a huge gap between what is taught in the classroom and what is practiced in actuality. So what has been like your personal experience and your thoughts about, because you seem to have thought a lot about like this particular aspect. So what has been your take about this idea of having this gap?
Wow. Umang, I can totally relate with what you felt. Trust me, I felt that way ever since I graduated. Like, anything, if anything happens, if somebody even says anything to someone in the family, they'll be like, हमारे घर में lawyer है. We have a lawyer in our family now. So, you better be careful with this and with that. And I'm like, yeah, I can definitely do something about it. And then I'll be thinking, okay, so what can I do? And then I'll be talking to my lawyer friends. Okay, so this is the situation, can anything be done? And everybody, if you talk to 3 4 different lawyers, they'll have different perspectives, they'll have different solutions to the same problem. And even then, to be able to pick and choose which one will work best for you and for the people you're trying to protect, even that takes another level of understanding, which I don't believe I ever, got from law school. And even now, during my practice, that sense of judgment, that sense of knowing what to do, and strategy building, and everything else that goes along with practicing law, is something that I never even knew that we needed to know in law school. So let's just say if the core subjects that we are taught in law school, the CPC, CRPC, Indian Evidence Act, IPC, let's just say if, that's like a bowl of fruits, then litigation and practicing law, it's like a lamp. So both of them are entirely unrelated. But if you place them next to each other, then the latter will be able to throw some light on the former. That's what I believe. So back in law school, when I was studying those subjects, the purpose for studying and learning those subjects was only to know enough to pass the exams. And even the exams were so theoretical that you never really knew how to apply law to the facts or interpret a statute. Even when we had a subject that said, the subject was titled Interpretation of Statutes, I never learned anything. I don't know if it's me or, just the way the syllabus is structured or anything else. But that feeling, and, when I started practicing, I had to read all of those subjects all over again, depending on the kind of case that I was handling. And it was then that I understood the provisions. It was then that I understood how to, apply law to the facts, not entirely, but in a way that could, actually help me remember the gist of it, to be able to make sense of it. That's how I learned these subjects with, and that's how these subjects helped me. So I had to do it all over again when I was practicing. And I think with law, the learning never stops, right? You have to read, you have to keep the bare acts with you. You have to read the subjects over and over again in different cases, especially when you're starting out, when you don't know it. I don't think you ever know everything, but when we're starting out, tab to bilkul we were starting from ground, I think minus, not even ground zero. So that is something that goes on and on. But even then, there are so many aspects to practicing law that are just never ever touched upon in law school. They're not even discussed. Forget about teaching them. Like the actual functioning of courts on a day-to-day basis, the importance of rules and regulations, government directives, government notifications, the need to understand the entire ecosystem, along with the neighboring laws to actually solve a legal problem. And the advocacy skills, the art of persuasion, the art of cross examination, technological skills, something that teaches you how to manage your case files and client queries better, how to pitch an idea to your senior to strengthen your argument and demolish the opposite party's arguments, and actually actual drafting skills, not just one pager format of a standard legal document like a will or a rent agreement, but actual drafting skills. What does it take to really be able to draft a well strategic, well researched legal document that actually is filed before the court? How to do that? It was all of those things, and another important aspect that I believe all of us should have been taught was how to understand the psyche of our client. Because if we don't understand the psychology, if we will never be able to connect with the client. We'll never be able to get all the facts out of the client and then apply law to those facts and then strategically place them in our legal documents and then argue them before the judge. So to be able to do all of that, I think we need these skills. And I didn't even know that we needed these skills before I started practicing. So, these are the things that law schools should take into consideration, I believe.
Yeah, because like what you've like just told right now, even I felt at a personal level where like you feel very lost, you feel like you don't know enough law. But this is something which I've always heard from people, like people who've even been in the profession for a very long time, that you're always a learner of law. No one can know enough law. So being someone who's practiced law now for like 2 years, 2.5 years, what would you say has changed? Like, have you become more comfortable in like not knowing about the law? Has your approach changed towards law? law, because this is something which, like, when say I started practicing at a law firm, I saw that my seniors who didn't know the answer to a particular law, they'd be very comfortable and they'd know exactly how to like go on about figuring that answer. So I'd want to understand, has that perspective shift happened from you where you've become like more comfortable not knowing the law? And like if that has happened, then what kind of skills you think helps people develop that kind of an outlook towards learning?
Right. I totally agree with you, Umang. You have to be comfortable with not knowing everything and being able to express that. So when I observed my seniors, and when also I also started practicing in the beginning, whenever I used to be given a task and my senior would say, "Okay, do this," I would say, "Yeah, it'll be done right away," even if I didn't know anything about it, how to get it done, what to do about it. I would say yes. But now the perspective has definitely changed. Now, when a client comes to me or a senior tells me something, I would openly admit that I don't know about it and I'll get back to you with that. But the thing that I think helped me in the practice is that now I know where to look for the answers, which I didn't earlier, because after spending a couple of years practicing in courts and interacting with different lawyers and working in different law offices, I think what it tells you is how to go about solving a legal problem. It I know that sometimes in law offices also, we draft a legal document for one matter, we appear for another matter, and then there'll be client sessions, client counseling sessions with other clients who, and you might not get to work on that case. So that was an obstacle initially in my career, where I used to be doing half things for one case and half for the other, and then not knowing how to draw connections. But when I started taking my own cases, that's when I actually learned how to go about it from start to finish. And that it's really not about, the one thing was that I thought you have to guarantee victory to your client to be able to make sure that they stay with you, they stick with you. But what I learned is that you have to know how to be honest in a strategic manner. You have to tell them, just like doctors do. If they know that the patient is not really going to make it, they don't
Hmm.
say that a patient will have a long, healthy life. They will want the family, they will want the patient, and they will say that we will still do our best. And if they succeed, they do. If they don't, they don't. So I'm trying to be okay with that, to be telling the clients what I believe the outcome of the case may or may not be, and how to manage that their expectations. That is also extremely important, because you tend to feel that, okay, if you tell them that this case may not really go well, then that person will not really come to you, because that person will say that, okay, this person is already so negative about this case, how will that, they fight
Yeah.
and everything. But I think knowledge gives you confidence. When you know something for sure, you won't know everything about it, but with your experience, with your research, and take your time, do your research, talk to people, know one particular thing for sure, that how you are going to approach this legal problem. Don't give options to your clients, because they are not the experts, they don't know, they don't have a legal background. You do. That's what they're coming to you for. So that is something that I learned, and I'm still learning. I'm like you said, it's just been 2 years, and 2 years is not a long time at all, especially in litigation. So I am sure there's a lot more to learn, but I have become comfortable with not knowing, and also being honest about it, so it doesn't harm either me or my client. Ultimately, it's all about securing justice, or securing at least a better life for them. What we tend to forget is that if somebody is coming to you with a problem, it's not just a legal problem, their entire life sometimes depends on it, either monetarily or emotionally, or in any other way. Sometimes I don't take criminal matters. I'm really not in I mean, I'm very interested in that subject, but I'm also scared of it. So I don't really go much into the criminal matters. But the pressure is, the stakes are so high in criminal cases, the pressure is too much, because over there it's totally about life and death, sometimes. So that is extremely uh, like stressful, to say the least. So when you're dealing with so much stress and when you have to give confidence to somebody else, you have to find a way to be calm yourselves, to be actually helpful and productive. And that comes with knowledge and practice and experience. And that never stops. About, law schools and how I truly believe we could improve upon our existing systems is that I was, reading about this concept of articling that, they follow in Canada. So it's almost akin to residency in the medical field, where you have to spend a particular amount of time to, be a resident at a hospital to learn things and be trained. And then you go on to becoming a surgeon or anything else in your chosen area of practice. So in law, something like that happens in Canada, where after graduation, on top of clearing your bar exam, for 10 months, you have to compulsorily do this apprenticeship under a lawyer. And that lawyer becomes your principal, and you become a student at law. And that lawyer is responsible for your learnings for the 10 months. That lawyer will train you. And then after that, will give his or her recommendations to this law society that they have, which is like our bar council. And only after succeeding in your apprenticeship and in your bar exam do you actually get called, get to be a lawyer, a practicing lawyer. And this is the entire process is a, it's a paid position. You get paid for it, you work extremely hard, and but you're still able to manage your expenses and everything. So I believe that we could import even a version of such a concept in our legal education system. That would be truly helpful, because then you are actually on the field. And the concept of not getting paid for learning on the job, well, I believe every job, there's a learning curve to every job, and especially more in litigation. But it's so important, and it's such a sensitive practice area that you have, like I told you, literally sometimes people's lives depends on how you handle the cases. And, so for that, you need to be trained, you need to be well prepared. So if you can't, I think it should be mandatory for everybody to have this sense of responsibility to be training the incoming generation of lawyers before they actually get to take up their own clients in practice. So yeah, this is something that I really believe would help.
Wow, those are some great points. And what you've pointed about Canada also in terms of their articling system is something which I'd like to talk more about. Because, like as I see right now in India, also you have a certain number of compulsory internships which you need to do before you can be a lawyer. So, but clearly, I think in some aspects that dream hasn't been fulfilled, where like you have trained lawyers per se before they start practicing. So taking that Indian context, for example, say where you have 5 mandatory internships of like a month each. So what changes can be brought to that system, keeping say the Canadian system in mind, maybe, so that you have better trained lawyers? Because from my perspective, what I see right now is in India also there are some, like on paper, there are a lot of provisions to ensure that people are trained adequately, but in reality, that's not happening. So where do you see the present systems failing, and how do you think we can have like maybe small improvements in the present curriculum itself to change the output of how, say, people study the law and understand it?
Right. In internships, I shared with you what my experiences were, right? And I've spoken to a lot of law students and, even my own interns for that matter, who have shared with me that they never really get to learn anything on their internship projects and everything. And mostly, even when you're interning, if you're interning in a law office, they will just tell you, okay, intern, law student, what will they know? They won't know anything. So इनको ये file पकड़ा देते हैं. Just hand over the file to them and ask them to research on a particular legal point, and then share the research with us, or just make briefs and make notes on the case file. But even those little things, they require application of mind. They require certain
Hmm.
legal skills that you must have, which is why you are there in the first place. And there's nobody, and you can't even put the blame on the seniors and the colleagues, because they already have so much on their plates. They're constantly working around the clock, They don't get time to eat. They don't get time to celebrate festivals or even go home for months and months at a stretch. People who are working in a different city. So, you can't really, I think the general functioning of these internships, how the lawyers treat their interns and how the interns also treat their seniors. I think if we could somehow bring some change in the perspective of the seniors taking some responsibility of instilling the right knowledge, the right legal skills into their interns, kind of like a feeling like a paternalistic uh, connection with them, because they will also be joining their own community in the coming days. And that is, if you give them the right knowledge and the right places to actually apply and the right people to connect with, then eventually we will have better lawyers, we will have better people to fight for us. And then the lag that we say that tariq pe tariq happens, and there are like, so the docket is always overflowing and everything, that also can be sorted in a different manner, because the lawyers that will be coming after having been trained in their internships, they will also come with solutions, not just problems. They will come up with, and they have a lot of energy, they have a lot of time. So if they put all of that in the right place, it will really be a very big service to our society. That's what I believe. And in the existing system, the law students, unfortunately, they are at a weaker position. So there's not really much that they can do about this, other than just changing their own perspective and trying to take charge of their own education. I think they also need to inculcate a sense of responsibilities towards their own learning journey. So during their internships, if they don't expect somebody will come and teach them something, instead they try to develop a spirit of inquiry, and inculcate a self-starter attitude in themselves, engage in meaningful conversations with people around them, and observe everything very, very closely, not just like sitting here and waiting for the day to get over. If I just see how, my senior is talking to the client, or what exactly is in the file, and I open the file of the upcoming matters, I try to make notes on my files, I try to make flowcharts and mind maps, and have simulation exercises in my own head, that okay, if I was a lawyer, what would be my strategy? And because then you have nothing to lose, you're just applying some hypothetical situations, and you're just doing some mental exercises with yourself. And then you can always, whenever you get a chance, you can ask questions. Don't think that they'd be stupid, because as interns nobody really expects you to know anything anyway, so why not just take a chance? you know so, and you're not going to see them again, hopefully, after a month or 2 months. So just ask questions, because what that is something that I never did. I kept waiting for somebody to tell me, okay, what I need to do. But when nobody did, I felt shy and I felt stupid, and I just sat in my corner, waited for the day to get over, and then just leave. So that is also one of the main reasons why I never learned anything in my internships. If I had taken responsibility of my own learning, I think it would have been better. And so also, lawyers, and the seniors and the professors in colleges. So the professors that we had, they used to teach half time, and they were practicing advocates otherwise. So they used to come and teach us after attending the court and everything, but they never shared with us what their life at court was exactly like. They never told us about the lawyers that we could connect with to learn more about practice of law and everything else. And we didn't ask, of course, because people are not really very much interested in those things in college. So things like that, to talk to your professors also. If they are not taking the initiative, you take the initiative, you try to reach out to them, ask them if you could intern with somebody or talk to somebody. And then when you are interning, you try to make as much out of it as possible. And there are really good podcasts also about young lawyer experiences, and also to stay updated with the law. There's this really good podcast called Know Your Kanun, which tells you the latest amendments and the stories. They actually narrate the story of the amendments in the law, and how the different verdicts of different courts on particular interesting topics. So, they can listen to those podcasts also. And of course, I always say this to everybody that they should be very, very active on LinkedIn. Post articles, write about your area of interest, ask people to give you good feedback, and connect with people that you find interesting. And LinkedIn is the best place to do that. So, these are the things that I think everybody can start doing while they're in law school, and that would really help them shape an opinion of what exactly they want to do after they graduate. Yeah.
Wow, thank you for that answer. I also got to know a lot about like things I should read and like probably think about more to like see where I want to go in my legal career. But but one thing which I faced as say a law student is when you're in college, like everything seems very hunky dory, and so that's one aspect that while looking back, you always feel, oh, this is something which I should have done better. So that's one idea which like law students or like students generally have. But the second thing also is that like it's often so difficult to just understand like what exactly you want, because like law in itself is a completely different like world compared to say other professions also, because you have like you can be a corporate lawyer, you can be a litigator. If you want to be a litigator, like there are 10 different areas of law where you can practice in. So it all also seems so difficult that the first taking the first step only seems like a very like seems like an impossible task at hand. So in that, would you have like certain steps where like you think students should actively do to firstly figure out the kind of internships they want to do or what kind of law they want to get in at? Because like this is something which I think like personally I've felt is like the more I've been reading about law, the more interested in law I've gotten. And now also when I look back, I feel that oh, in law school, if I'd probably started reading about these things, it would have been much better. So if there are some things which you can share, like in retrospect, looking back, you'd go and tell a student to start doing, like apart from these things which you've said, to study the law um or to get to know people, what are some first steps which every student should take or like start thinking about like as soon as they can to like ensure that they don't have these difficulties later in their career?
Right. Umang, honestly, I've always believed that you won't know what you like and what you don't like unless you try everything. So in law also, I have, done multiple things. I've also interned at a civil law office, and then I've also worked at a trademark law firm. And like I told you, in my internships, I interned at Shardul Amarchand, and I also interned at under a judge to see different things. And then about criminal also, I've not worked in a criminal office per se because it does scare me, but I have that on my list. I want to try it. So my idea is that if you try everything, all the areas of practice, you should give every area about say 3 months. And if you start early, then your internships can be planned that way. And then by process of elimination, you can figure out what you like and what you don't like. It like we said, law is about just about everything. It's hardly ever about specialization. There's an entire ecosystem that's involved. So even if I'm doing civil, I'll have to touch upon criminal in CASI criminal matters like check bounce cases, and there'll be maintenance cases for divorce matters, which are both civil and criminal in nature. There's defamation, which is both civil and criminal in nature. So I can't really stay away from that aspect. If you're doing trademarks, there will be issues relating to patents also. There will be issues related to copyrights and geographical integration. So, and also competition law, consumer law, all of these laws are, I think they are somewhere or the other interrelated. Corporate laws includes not just company act but also IBC, and other even check bounce cases have separate provisions for companies. And so you need to know all the things to be able to actually be somebody who can really solve a legal problem, because it will never come to you in a set format with say this is about this particular area of practice and this is about this particular subject. That is not how the clients will tell you their issues. You'll have to correlate. So I think it's very important to dip your toes in all the areas of practice before you decide, okay, this is one particular subject that I'm really, really interested in. Now that I've learned a little bit about everything, I would like to do my specialization in this particular area of practice. So that won't mean that you don't know other things. That will mean that you know more about this than other things. So I think that is also something that will really help, and it helped me. And other than that, also like you said, reading about law, it really helps. Like Live Law also has this YouTube channel where they share the weekly updates of law. So which court held what, and these are like 5-10 minutes videos. So when you don't get a lot of time, just at least if you just watch those videos, at the back of your head what's going on. And judgments, read good judgments, a lot of them. So when you're faced with some particular point of law and you need to find a precedent, because we are a common law system, we go a lot. The precedents are heavily relied upon in your arguments before the judge. So when you've read so many judgments, now you'll be able to correlate eventually that, okay, this particular point was also argued in that case where the court had held that. So you can just go back to that judgment. But that won't happen unless you make it a habit of reading judgments and on different points of law. And of course, like reading, not just the law books, I also like to read philosophy and psychology. Not because I understand all of that, I don't, but I have this I have really deep interest in these subjects to understand the bigger picture of it all. So when I'm interacting with my clients, they feel comfortable with me enough to open up. Usually, they will try, if they are not comfortable with you, they will try to hide some facts which can go against your own client at a later stage. But if you just say that, pointedly, that, okay, this will go against you if you don't tell me, that will not really help them or you. So to be able to make them comfortable, to be able to communicate properly and express yourself properly, I think it's very important to understand where they're coming from, to give them that benefit of the doubt, and also be kind. And to be sounding a little unconventional, but I think traveling also helps. When you travel, and especially solo trips, I love solo trips. You travel and you meet new people from all walks of life. Instead of just having a small talk with them, if you engage in a meaningful conversation, if you show genuine curiosity to learn about their life and their challenges and how they overcame their challenges, I think that also teaches you a lot about life. So life and law, they go hand in hand. It's all about the relationships, the human relationships, and how we regulate them, how we perceive them, how we interpret them, and then present them before the judge. So I really, really think that all of these things would help, and you should start as early as possible. Have fun with it. Don't see it as just something that, is lying heavy on top of you. Just see it as something that you want to explore, and you'll keep exploring it.
Wow, that was a great answer. I almost feel like going and like reading some law right now, because it was almost poetic the way you put it in terms of like how law and life form like an inextricable link and both are related. So this brings me to another thing which I wanted to ask is, like, from what you say, I understand that empathy is something which is needed a lot from, like, when people come to you to understand like what their issues are, as a senior to a junior, to understand like why the junior is struggling, as a junior, when you're a junior, to like understand things like what the purpose of law was. But also, like, strangely, in a profession which needs so much empathy, law is also a profession which has like so much stress to begin with, because you have like insane work hours, the pay is very less in the initial few years. After that, like, people, as you were saying, are not so nice. So in that, like, what would be your advice to, say, a person who's just starting out to like traverse, say, the world of litigation? And like, I also want you to, like, in this, talk a little bit about like finding mentors or like people you can look up to. Like, how can people go on about doing that when they like feel lost in the legal profession?
Right. That's very well put, Umang. Thank you for, explaining it better. That's exactly what I meant. That to be able to have that kindness and empathy, to understand your juniors, your seniors, your clients, everybody around you, basically, because that's only how you'll be able to help people and how you'll be able to get help from people. About mentors, like I told you, my experience has not really been very good, but that also taught me a lot. Not having a mentor, it really, it pushed me to do better. It really, not having that, not receiving that guidance that I really, really wanted, it inculcated a sense of self-reliance in me, and it helped me manage my own expectations. The long working hours without a break, with low pay, and struggling so much, it taught me how to worship my work and not really, expect anything out of it other than the sheer satisfaction of a job well done. So it helped me get disciplined, so which I really needed to get on track. So I, at this point, I don't need anybody to tell me what to do, to tell me how to do it. They just need to tell me what needs to be done, and I'll figure out a way to do it. So that is like something that's so special, and so that helps you in every aspect of life. And so I really want people out there who are looking for mentors to be okay with or without them, to try to accept that there are people who will guide you for a certain amount of time, but there are people who won't. There will be good people, bad people, kind people, unkind people, but you should not be relying on them, how they treat you. You should try to make the most of what you are doing at a particular point in time, and how that is adding to your life, how that is helping you progress. So you today should be better than you were yesterday. You're in competition with just yourself. I know it's cliched, but I truly, truly believe that, because I've experienced it. When I compare myself to other people who are, my age, and they're doing great things in life. So initially, I also used to feel like, no, it could have been me. It should have been me. But then they've had their experiences, it's their journey, they've worked so hard to get where they are, and I am where I am because of myself. So that feeling in itself is so fulfilling, that you just feel like you feel proud of yourself, and you feel like doing better tomorrow. So that is also something. And the fact that I went through what I did, and I'm still going through things, I'm still pretty young, so it gave me the ability to relate with others who face the same challenges, being a first generation lawyer. And it allowed me to do my bit to help us all learn and grow together, which is how I came up with the idea of litigation basics. And to be able to reach out to law students all across, maybe the entire country, hopefully, and be able to be that person to them that I wanted somebody to be for me. So what I would like to say, that it's a constant battle, Umang, to rise above, to pave way for your own self, to put a positive spin on a seemingly out of control life, to surpass your own self, exceed your expectations. But trust me, if there's any battle that's worth fighting, it's this. The feeling of overcoming what you once thought was impossible, that feeling is worth it. And litigation, or any other area of practice that you're interested in, it's a land of opportunities to grow constantly. It's only, you know if only you see it with the right mindset. So your perspective is all that matters. If you see it as people just stepping all over you, and then just rising above by just pushing you down, then you'll always just feel that you're being pushed down, and you'll victimize yourself, and then you'll just cry in one corner, and that nobody will come and help you like that, because everybody has a life to live. So get up and help yourself. And if you say you can do it, you will. That's what I truly believe. So, I just wish success and happiness to whoever is trying to do anything in life, because I think that's what matters, that you try. You try every day, don't give up.
Wow. And yeah, that's clearly evident from your journey as well. Like you seem to have picked up a lot in the past 2 years, have learned a lot, fought like a lot of battles. So here I'd want to ask like one personal question also, from how I see it. I see like a lot of great qualities in you in terms of you being very proactive towards reading, understanding, learning, in terms of like giving back also, the fact that you've like started teaching and taking this course on litigations basics. So like I'd also want to ask, what are the kind of things which like you're trying to work on yourself, or the kind of battles which you still fight and you feel that you can do better in future, so that like just to like know the human aspect also, because otherwise like especially in these interviews I feel like everything is so hunky dory when you're talking to a person. You usually never like talk about their failures. So if you'd want to talk about that, what are some things which you like feel you would like want to do better in future, or you've been like trying to do but you've been failing, but have been like planning to do it more in future?
Right, Umang, I hoped you'd not ask me that question. I thought I'd pulled you enough, to not ask that. But it's a great question. I actually honestly also believe that we don't talk about our failures much, and it's mostly because of our failure that we are where we are. So the one major thing that I still struggle with is that I have this constant feeling that I don't know enough. Like I know that we can't know everything, and that every day you have to learn more. And we practice law, we never say that we've mastered law. So the practice is a lifelong thing, it goes on. So I know all the the right ways to think about it, but that
Mhm.
overwhelming feeling that if I stutter in front of the judge, or if I used to suffer from stage fright, which actually prevented me from participating in a lot of competitions, in moot court competitions also actually. And I just participated in one competition only on the condition that I'll be the researcher. I won't be the speaker. And I just went for it because I wanted to experience it. But this is one thing that I am still trying to overcome: the stage fright, the ability to express myself in a way that's actually required, especially when you have very limited time and when somebody's life depends on it. There's a lot of pressure, and there's this constant fear of not doing enough to help. I know it might it sounds quite vague, but this thing is something I'm still battling with. I'm trying to overcome that feeling, because the confidence that you get is like from within. It is not always enough, and I have not been very fortunate with the kind of people I've come across in this field, and generally also in life. And I keep looking for more people. Things are looking up now. I have found amazing people these days, and there have been great friends as well in the legal field. But like setting up my own practice and really going out in the world as a first generation lawyer, now that I'm not attached with any senior per se, that is very scary. And I know that failures are good, but I have this strong fear of failing, because I don't want to. It's just, I just, I know it'll teach me something, but I feel I have that thing that, I'm 27 now. I should reach a certain level in my career, in my own journey. And I haven't reached that level yet. And so that bugs me a lot. So yeah, that's what I can think of right now with all the filters and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, thank you for the answer. That was very candid. And in fact, I could also relate to a lot of it in terms of like having, say, stage fright or this fear of not doing enough. Because, like, also, I feel like in litigation, or especially, like, I don't know, probably it's because of social media or like for what, but you only see the good of the, you only see where like people are succeeding nowadays. And there's so many people doing so many great things. Somewhere you feel like, oh, am I doing enough? Am I on the right path? So yeah, what you're doing is in fact like I think very brave for you to like own up to these failures, because I don't think like most people also confront like what they feel genuinely. So I think like yeah, that's the first step to like owning up to your fears and then working towards them. So yeah, I'm like glad you brought that answer up. I'm sure a lot of our viewers also would like relate to it and understand that no matter if things are going wrong, also there are a lot of things which will go right, and like you have to look at the bright side also at times.
Right.
But so Sanya, I had a great time talking to you, and like I could probably go on and on, given that you've been like so nice and so candid, warm. But but I think our viewers would want to us to have a short interview, and so I'd like to just ask you like a concluding question. Is there anything which like you would want to say generally to our viewers, to anybody who's watching, who's like looking for some advice, who's like not very sure what they want to do, or if they're sure, they're like just looking for some reaffirmation that like things will work out for them. So is there like a parting message you want to tell to our viewers?
Sure, everything I just said, I think I've been a little too preachy in my interview, but I honestly believe that, I'm not saying that I have achieved everything that I wanted to. I'm still a long way from that, but I truly believe that if I can do it, if I can wake up every day and, just be resolute with my plan for my life and take charge of it, then you can do. It doesn't matter which law college you come from. It doesn't matter whether or not you know other lawyers. It doesn't matter if you have people in your family backing you up, or not. Yeah, it does matter if you don't have enough money. That is actually a problem for everybody, and that is something that we really need major policy changes for. I truly believe, and I've said this multiple times on various platforms, that when senior advocates say that, okay, when we were juniors, we were getting paid 200 rupees a month, or sometimes you were not getting paid at all, you were learning and you're asking for money to learn. I strongly disagree with that, because first of all, 200 rupees 25 years down the line is nothing. Like, today, in today's terms, the basic minimum average salary that you must be getting to survive as an individual in a major or even minor city is around 25 to 30,000 rupees. And but lawyers are not, seniors, they're not willing to shell out that kind of money, because they think that they have to train, and then that person will make mistakes and they'll have to fix those mistakes, so what should they pay them for? But that's how it works in every industry. Is something I think we tend to forget. Even in call centers, they get paid for being trained, and even when they don't have that much educational qualification. So when we are coming after doing 5-year law, or after graduating twice in bachelor's in political science for me, and then bachelor's in law, and after investing so much time and money in my education, if I'm entering a profession, I should get paid respectfully to be able to make my ends meet. And it doesn't matter if I'm living with my family or if I have to pay rent. That's none of their concern. That's what I strongly believe. So that is one issue that will stay with you, till people change their attitudes and policies. But other than that, I really think that just be very, very sure of yourself, because there are tons of people who will try to just put you down, not because they want to. They really don't. They don't care actually to do that, but it feels like they're trying to put you down. They're trying to plant doubts in your heads, but that's you acting against yourself. So recognize that, have faith in yourself, and believe that if you don't know something today, you will learn that. You will achieve that as long as you're willing to try. So don't stop trying, no matter what anyone tells you. And in whichever area of practice, make mistakes. I think making mistakes is also very important. Try everything, just don't stop trying. Yeah, that's my major, like, something that I really want you to take away from this. And please feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk more on this or anything else in life. And I'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you. Thank you so much for this, Umang. Thank you for having me here. It's been wonderful talking to you. I really enjoyed this.
Wow, thank you, Sana. This was like great. This was very inspiring for me, and I'm sure for our viewers as well. And with this, I'd like to conclude the interview. And